Hello, good morning, and welcome all to our today's session. Today's session we are dealing with snakes in suit. If you can hear me, type yes. If I'm not audible, type an N to mean no. Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, today's topic is snake in suit, and we're having our guest as Faith Gichanga, who's a counseling psychologist, and Memory Nguwi as our panelist for today. Faith Gichanga, a little profile into Faith Gichanga's career is after working for over 10 years in various capacities, both private and public sector, Faith pursued her passion in mental health and professional counselor. She empowers individuals to tap into their inner resources as well as cope with everyday psychological challenges in order to reach their full potential. She is registered with Kenya Counselling and Psychological Association, KCPA. Faith is also a trained and content creator in area of self-awareness, marriage, and family, workplace, mental health support, and everyday psychological wellness. Faith works with organizations to support both employees and the organizations reach for the individual and corporate goals by offering various psychological support services. She supports organizational change management, bringing in the mental health component during this process of renewing an organizational direction, structure, and capacities. For sustainability of mental wellness in the corporate space, she champions the development and the implementation of workplace mental health policies. That Faith will be our first panelist, and Memory Nguwi is a Zambian human resource consultant and entrepreneur. He is the founder of Industrial Psychological Consultants, IPC, a well-known consulting firm in Zimbabwe. Memory has extensive experience in human resource management with over 17 years in both line function and consultancy services. Memory has managed project assignments in private and government sector and not-for-profit sectors, NGOs as we know them in Kenya. Memory sits number of boards in Zimbabwe, in organizations like Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, where he is also the chair of the Human Resource and Remuneration Committee. He is a past TED talker. Watch his riveting talk called "We Are Only as Strong as Our Human Resource." And he has previously featured in our iPerformance e-learning session in May of 2020. Welcome.
Hello, morning everyone. Martin Wanjohi here. Memory and Faith, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. Memory, you well? Memory, you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Just a correction, I'm not Zambian, I'm actually Zimbabwe.
Oh, Zimbabwe. Sorry, but your neighbor's next door.
Yeah, no, yeah,
My
that's correct.
apologies. Yeah?
No problem.
Yes. So, pleasure to have you back here. I think we had a very riveting session last time. We were told we have to bring you back on another session. Faith, welcome very much. So we have an industrial psychologist and a counseling psychologist in the same room, yeah? Which I think for me is quite interesting. It's quite interesting. So Faith, maybe share, we learned what industrial psychologists do, but Memory will still share again with us. So in brief, what does a counseling psychologist do?
All right, thank you, Martin. Good morning, everyone. So counseling psychologist, basically, I think the layman term that people use usually is a counselor. And it's part of what we do is part of what was in my profile. Basically, we help individuals be able to deal with their everyday challenges, and so that they can be able to reach their inner potential and live lives fully. And part of that will include their emotions, their thoughts, and their behavior. Those are the three things. Those are the three key things that we focus on.
Okay.
Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, Memory, you could refresh us. What does actually an industrial psychologist do?
Okay, thank you very much. Remember, psychology is a broad area. We study human behavior, whether it's in individual or in groups. But if you look, the focus is mainly on individuals. So from an industrial psychology point of view, our work is really to get the best person for the job, which means entry into an organization. Then we also must put mechanisms in place to make sure that everyone is productive until they exit the organization. So it's a whole value chain that we deal with. Get the best person for the job, make them productive. When they exit, make sure that they exit humanely.
Okay, great. So today's session is snakes in suits, when psychopaths come to the workplace. And I think has anybody read this book in the audience? If you've read the book, just kindly share yes. If not, you're yet to read it, type a no and then so that we know how it looks like. If you've read the book, Psychopaths at Work, let me just share the cover so that we're able to see. If you've read the book, kindly share with okay, great, there we go. So you can see the cover of the book. If you've read the book on a chat, type yes. If you have yet to read, you can type a no N. Okay, we're waiting to see on chat. Let's see how many people have read, have had a look at the book. Okay, great. So then we are starting from a good point. We all know what snakes are. So maybe, Memory, you could share with us, who are psychopaths?
Okay, thank you very much. There are two, let's look at it from two different angles. There is what is called the clinical psychopath, okay? Then there's the ordinary psychopath. So they should be different, but although they are related. A psychopath is basically someone with no conscience. They don't care whether they are suffering or not. Their focus is really on themselves, not anyone else. They're very cruel the way they deal with people. They're very mean in the way they deal with people. So the bottom line is that a psychopath has no conscience. So they don't feel any guilty. They have no empathy at all. So even if they make you feel very stressed, they won't worry about it. They actually celebrate as they're suffering. That's why they're very dangerous when it comes to the workplace. And if you look at statistics, you also notice that there are plenty of them in the workplace. And probably this session will help us identify how do you know that this person is likely to be a psychopath. Because they are not likely to be able to do that as a non-psychologist to be able to identify them 100%, because there would need to be some form of assessment that you can do. But what we need to look at is just general behavior that is exhibited by psychopaths. But if you look at research, there are more psychopaths in the workplace than in the general population. For example, if you look at the general population, you find that roughly about 1% in other countries are psychopaths. But as you move into the workplace, they range from 8 to 20%, and more predominantly at the CEO level. That's where you find the leadership level.
So from the audience, do you know someone in the workplace or someone in another organization who fits the description Memory has just shared with us? If you know people like that, type a yes. Yeah. So Memory, what's the difference between a psychopath and a narcissist?
Okay, if you have read, if you understand psychology, you understand there's something called the dark triad, okay? Where you've got a psychopath, these are personality traits, then you're a narcissist, then you've got a Machiavellian or Machiavellianism. Those are the three, the dark triad. It's called the dark triad because these are personality traits that are not ideal. The consequences of people having those traits can be disastrous. And a combination of all the four is a disaster for any individual to have all the four traits. So it emanates from that. It's really the dark triad, the narcissist. If you look at a narcissist, for example, their preoccupation is self-preservation. They think about themselves. These are the same people, when you go into their offices, you find they display marriage certificates, their educational certificates, everything to do with them. Their pictures are in the office so that you can see who they are as an individual. Okay, so it's really about them, who am I, and self-preservation when you look at the narcissist. But one characteristic of both of them is that they're very ruthless if they find an opponent in the course of their work. If you cross their path, you are unlikely to survive, especially if they're in leadership role, in a leadership role, because they also wield power in the organization. So they are likely to really go after you for a very long time. Even if you try to stay for a very long time, they'll come after you. They'll find a way to get rid of you. So that's basically what you find in those three, the dark triad. But you may also be interested to note that if you look at research, yes, we say CEOs are some of the careers where you find psychopaths. Most executive roles, you also find it's also predominantly high among lawyers, among major personality, among salespeople. Those are the top career choices for those people. They tend to get attracted to those careers because those careers allow them to express themselves because they depend on expression. They need to express themselves and be in charge and take control. That's how they operate.
Faith,
Yes.
how do you help someone like that? And just to say, I'm hearing from memories, the description, there are many of us. Yeah, how do you deal with such kinds of people?
All right, thank you, Martin. I need to say though, just to emphasize something Memory said, that even as we go through this session and we get to know characteristics, we are not yet equipped to go pointing out people and saying this is a psychopath and this is not. There needs to be an assessment. So yes, we can have some characteristics that may point to that. It's like when someone, we're talking about malaria, and someone has fever and they have joint aches. So we cannot say everyone who has fever and joint aches has malaria. It's until the test is done. So the same thing. So we hope that people will not go diagnosing themselves and others that they are this. They have psychopathic personality. All right. So how do you? So from a clinical perspective, how is treatment done? Now, unfortunately, it is one of the most difficult mental disorder to treat for various reasons. So one of the things that they struggle with is they lack the affect. They don't know their emotional way of relating to people is broken down. Yeah, these are people who even, for example, if you know how if you show different kind of faces to people, if I was sitting here and I'm going through my computer and I see a scary face, there's a way I'm going to react. If I see a smiley face, I'm going to react. But for psychopath, they'll probably just look at all the faces the same way. So it is said that there's no really medication that can treat that can bring emotions to people who don't have emotions. However, some suggested treatment are number one, counseling, psychotherapy. But that one, it's not to help them have those emotions, but for behavior modification. As Memory said, a lot of psychopaths do engage in antisocial behavior. So whether it's criminal activity or just at the workplace, probably bullying or all those kind of things. So the treatment is geared towards that behavior modification. How can they learn to behave in a more pro-social kind of way? Secondly, when it comes to medication, drugs, so there are no drugs that specifically treat psychopathy. Also, you will want to note that psychopathy has not been identified per se as a mental illness by itself. According to APA, who are the ones who have classified mental illnesses and diseases, they say that it's an identifier of what they call antisocial personality disorder. So the main disorder is antisocial personality disorder, and then psychopathy. So if you go to like the DSM, we call it DSM, it's called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. If you go through it, you will not find psychopathy. So probably as a result, very few researches have been done about it because it's not been given its place. It's not been given the priority as it should. So when it comes to drugs, there are no drugs specifically for that, but some proposed drugs are like antidepressants. Sometimes people with psychopathy on a high level can be given antidepressant drugs just to be able to stabilize the hormones, the feel-good hormones. And also treated using oxytocin, again, to help them with their emotions, to just elevate their moods a bit. But it's, again, I need to repeat, it's termed as one of the most difficult conditions to treat. Back to you, Martin.
Thanks. So, thank you, Faith. So, memory, interesting thing, I was reading on the book. We brought this upon ourselves, having psychopaths at the workplace, that actually after we moved from bureaucracy to the new way of doing work, the jobs that we have are very attractive to psychopaths and they perform very well, and HR often confuses the psychopathy with performance. How do we handle this?
Thank you very much. I think let's start from, just want to comment on what Faith was saying, to add on to what she said in terms of how difficult it is to treat a psychopath. Remember, we talked about the dark triad. So it's not one aspect, it's many aspects that you look at. The reason why it's so difficult to treat a psychopath is that it's rooted in personality. And remember, personality is almost semi-permanent disposition. It rarely changes, and it's largely hereditary and largely early childhood experience. So once someone has got it, it's for life. That's the unfortunate part. What you can do is to raise self-awareness for the characteristics that they have, the bad characteristics, the good that they have. Like you said, Martin, your psychopaths are often mistaken as leaders because they're very charismatic, they're very assertive, they present themselves very well. Psychopaths rarely fail an interview, a job interview. They rarely fail a job interview because they present themselves very well. They're very assertive. They will go in there. They're exceptional communicators naturally, these psychopaths. So they go through the interview. But also remember, the interview in terms of its predictive validity, it's only 8%. So it's only predicts about 8% of the performance. It's a very unreliable way for selecting people. So if you're going to use the interview to select people, chances are there is a 92% error variance in it. So it's just like tossing a coin. So psychopaths will naturally go in. They're basically walking into your organizations every day because of the method that we are using to select people into organizations. So that's the way the challenge is.
Okay. So memory, back to you, something else. We are on the dark side, and apparently the dark side is what gives results in the organization. And with everything, there is the good dark side and the bad dark side. Basically, they are good. Are there good psychopaths and bad psychopaths, or they're all the same?
Yeah, I would not say they're good psychopaths. I think what is there is that because psychopaths, they present themselves as having leadership qualities, they get selected. They go and push people to perform. These are people who are really ruthless. If you don't perform, you're out. That's how they operate. So they're very ruthless. So people will be scared. So it's management by fear. So people will perform. But if you look at research, you will notice that most psychopaths don't last that long in an organization. If there is really a good board, for example. Because they come in, because the first thing that they come and do when they join your organization is to cut costs. So the first thing is they will reduce the head count and cut costs and reduce. If you're having lunch, they will stop you having lunch, and all the other freebies, they will be taken away. So psychopaths naturally deliver performance, but it's all short term. Even if you look at research done by Harvard Business School, you'll notice that they don't last that long. The performance is for a short period of time. But with the drive now to humanize the workplace, these are not people that you'd want in the workplace. When you have a psychopath, the best way to deal with that will be to probably not have a psychopath as a CEO or one of those influential positions like your chief finance officer or your human resources director. Those are really key positions that you would not want a psychopath in those roles. So I remember I was reading something a few months ago when I think the British, I think when they were attacked some years back in the 19th, they wanted actually to hire psychopaths because they get things done. But the good thing about psychopaths is they get things done. If you hire a psychopath, you are guaranteed things will get done. But the methods of getting things done are the ones that then create stress, destroy the team. They can go get someone into depression. They create a lot of stressful environment in the workplace. That's the challenge. So I would not say there is a good psychopath. The psychopaths need to be managed and avoid having psychopaths in very influential position. Once they get hold of power, it's very difficult for them to let go.
Faith, from what memory is describing and discussing, this seems to be the startup arena sounds to be like the perfect play zone for a psychopath. No per se maybe strong board. They have their way, and the business of business is business, which is getting things done. So I think we are a little bit conflicted here, because if you want something done and done perfectly, then a psychopath seems to be the person, the go-to person. However, the damage they leave is at high cost. You could share your thoughts around that.
All right, Martin, you seem to be having a very soft spot for psychopaths. Anyway, so it is not the fact that they are psychopaths that they are able to perform well and do these things well. Now, remember what Memory said, it's a personality disorder. So it's a personality, but now some of these characteristics and traits have gone to become too much and on the negative. So we can have people with those personality, but then they don't have the disorder, in that it has not gotten to that place where it's detrimental. So we're not saying that only psychopaths have these strengths. We have people with the same kind of personality trait, but they have been harnessed well, they have been managed, and so they are more useful than for a psychopath who will go hacking everyone along the way to have your business in order, or for your business to succeed. So what we are saying is there are people who are well mentally adjusted and can be able to give you the same results, are able to go for the goals that we want as a company, as a business, without having the burden that a psychopath brings in.
Okay. So Esther, Faith, sorry, what's your experience with psychopaths at the workplace?
Okay, so what Memory is saying is true. The psychopaths are very high performing. They are, very smart, and that's partly how come even when they commit crime, first of all, it might take very long before it's discovered, because they even know how to hide their tracks. They're very intelligent people. So, and again, they're high performing. So they tend to be at the leadership of an organization. So unfortunately, some usually would look at, oh, that's just him being a leader, or that's just, but we fail to see that beyond the leadership, there's that. There are those qualities that are detrimental to the organization. So my experience is that, so this was before, when probably I used to work. Now I'm in business, so not much of it. But when I was in the corporate world, as I mentioned, as it was mentioned in my bio, I used to be in the corporate world. I think back then I didn't have the eyes to see it as that this is a psychopath, or even that this person is not mentally okay. Yeah. So I do know of people who injured me and probably other workers by bullying, as Memory is saying. They are high achievers, so they set standards that are almost impossible. And this is by the way for them to look good. Even as they're doing this, it's not so much as for the company to be profitable or whatever. It's just the grandiosity. And then they look down on people. And then these are people who you are either, to them, you're either a pawn, PAWN, or someone, so that they will use you, they manipulate you if they can see a weakness, or if they perceive that you have some strength that they need, then they use you for that advantage. Then, so these are the same people who will use other people in authority to protect them. They hide behind the power of other people. So those are some of the things that I observed while I was in the corporate world.
Okay, memory, interesting question here we have from Wanjera. The conversation seems to focus more on individuals in management or leadership roles. What if the person portraying psychopathic behavior is a junior staff? How do you deal with such a person, especially if the behavior is directed to their manager?
Okay, thank you very much for that question from Wanjira. I think at the beginning I did indicate that psychopaths are found across all levels in the organization, even in your family. They are there at home as we speak now. There are plenty of psychopaths in your own homes. But the damage is more if they're in a leadership role where they control resources, they lead people, they allocate resources. So the damage is more. But I do take a note of the question. When you've got a psychopathic subordinate or a junior employee, they lie to you, they manipulate you, they tell you lies, they don't come to work on time, they'll give you stories. These are the people that are there. So at a lower level, it's much easier. I'm sure there are regulations, rules that you can apply. But imagine if the person is a CEO who will discipline them. And more importantly, the damage is actually even worse if the person is a chairman of the board of your organization. Or imagine if your board has got 8 people and 4 of them are psychopaths. You're going to be on a roller coaster, basically. That's how it looks. Very damaging. But I also want to highlight what Faith has said earlier on, to say psychopaths, there is a very high correlation between psychopathic traits and the intelligence. These are very intelligent people, but they do stupid things in some instances. That's why we call them intelligent fools. Sometimes because of the behavior that they then exhibit, even in leadership roles. So they do perform. But the damage is often discovered 5-10 years later, and it will take you years to correct that. If you find an organization that is manned by psychopaths, especially in leadership roles, turnover is high, people come and go, they don't stay, especially the clever ones, they don't stay. Our biggest challenge with psychopaths is that it's a permanent disposition. It rarely changes. You have to live with them if you hire them. The best way is to screen them at entry. Don't let them into your organization. Screen them at entry through using psychometric tests, because you can. Because if you're looking at psychometric tests, these psychopaths, normally they're poorly adjusted people. If you look at adjustment or your neuroticism scale, you'll find that they're poorly adjusted. But what you may also find is that besides having high neuroticism, they also, if they are we've got low agreeableness, they go into stealth mode. They won't tell you, you won't notice them, but they will be damaging as they go around. But it's more easy to identify psychopaths, especially if they are extroverts. If they're extroverted, it's easy to identify them. Because those characteristics can be easily seen. They also tend to show off. But also remember, those that have got a criminal tendency are not afraid to harm people. If you stand in their way, they will harm you as they go through their process to get whatever they want. So very cunning people that we are talking about here. So it's a big, if you look at America, for example, psychopath, if someone is got psychopathic, narcissistic, and Machiavellian tendencies, that is what we call in industrial psychology derailment, which means the person has been derailed. They've got the potential, but they can't fulfill that potential because they've been derailed. If you look at statistics for 2017, it is estimated that America lost about 38 billion due to leadership derailment alone. And that is not a small amount. We don't know the figures in Africa, we don't know the figures in other continents, but it could be huge. So it's not a small issue. This is the core of how organizations are run. Don't get psychopaths into your organization. But it's very difficult to then be 100% sure that there is no psychopath in your organization. It's not possible. But if you can minimize it, as you go up, you be thorough as you're selecting the people, because you can easily identify them through your personality assessments.
Memory, something interesting you've just shared. And just before I ask the question, I hope those people with the questions around how we can spot psychopaths at the recruitment level, I think Memory has alluded to that. Interesting, something you discussed, Memory. Psychopaths, introversion, and extroversion. Now, we've seen introverts also getting into leadership. Now, which one is worse, an extroverted psychopath or an introverted psychopath?
In actual fact, you find that probably an introverted psychopath is even more dangerous because it's very difficult to detect compared to the extroverted psychopath. So there is no one who is better, but in terms of detection from a layman who is not a psychologist, you are unlikely to be able to identify an introverted psychopath. Because what they do is, and more so, if they're highly agreeable, these are people who smile at you, these are people who they don't show any conflict, but behind your back, they will then hammer you. So it's a combination of the big five. But there is also an additional trait that was, for those that have used the psychopersonality trait assessment, you notice that there's another trait called, which we are now calling the big six, which is the emotionality one, sorry, the humility, trait. So those people who are actually low on humility, they actually tend to be more cunning psychopaths. And if you look, like what Faith indicated earlier on, they're also more inclined to commit crimes, frauds, and all the other corporate crimes that you can think of. And if they're introverted, they're likely to hide that for years. You only discover that when they're gone sometimes. When you discover that the company is actually technically insolvent. It's been milked all these years by someone in leadership. So, yeah, I wouldn't say an extrovert is a better psychopath. An introvert is a better psychopath. So.
Okay. Faith, so can we say, are there specific careers that are enticing? We've looked at roles and it seems psychopaths fit well into leadership positions where they have authority. But what about careers? Say people, sales, because I know salespeople will tramp on you to get a deal. They don't care whether you are happy or not, but they clinched the deal. And what matters is the result, not how it was achieved. Are there careers that are more attractive to psychopaths?
Thank you, Martin, for that question. It may seem so, and Memory alluded to some of those when he said, so first of all, they say CEO, I guess across the board, it doesn't matter in what industry. We also have salespeople, you're right, Martin, salespeople feature there. We have lawyers. We all know how lawyers believe in themselves. So maybe even just having psychopathy personality leads them to that. We have surgeons. We don't know why. Probably that's what draws them to the knives and everything. That's also a career that they tend to like. Interestingly, chefs as well. So I don't know if it's to do with the fire or the knives. So yeah, those are some of the careers that have been identified to have a lot more psychopaths than others. But there's a list. I think a research had been done. There's a list of about 10.
Yeah. Memory. Someone is asking if you could expound about the big six. Yes. So, Ebere Wabara.
Yeah, if the big five personality traits, your introversion, conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, and those are the common ones. So what I was adding is that there's a new one called honest humility. And the honest humility one is the latest one. And it has been found that people who score very low on honest humility tend to be psychopaths as well. And also it tend to predict unethical behavior. And if you look at research, you'll find that most of the people that behave unethically, it can be traced basically to their personality. Roughly about 33% of the unethical behavior can be explained purely on the basis of personality. The remainder is really ethical culture within the organization. So yeah, that's basically what it means in terms of those big, and they can be assessed at entry. But the unfortunate part is that because these people are charming when they come in for an interview, they are likable. You like them. They're very nice when they want to get something from you. So very likely that inexperienced interviewers will rate them very highly when they recruit them, and it will only show after probation most of the time. That's when you find their true character.
Okay, so just before we go on, we'd like to ask the audience if you could kindly share on chat the country you're joining us from, so that we know we have an audience from which countries. Kindly on chat, you can share the country you're joining us from. And as we go on memory and faith, I want to introduce another word, and then you can tell us how it plays around with psychopath. Sadist. Can we have a sadist psychopath or tendencies? Because we are not one, we are a combination of a number of things. So how do these play out with the other known mental or personality disorders?
Okay, maybe I can go first and then memory can respond. Okay, so in psychology, we have, as I said, I alluded, there's a manual that is the encyclopedia of mental illnesses. So in that manual, they're stated the specific types of mental illnesses that we have. So some categories fall under mood disorders. That's where we have depression. Some are anxiety disorders. Some are personality disorders, like for example, what we're talking about. So they're categorized like that. So so when we talk about a sadist, so sadist is not, could be a characteristic of a few of this. So it's not a personality disorder by itself. So it's not really recognized in the DSM, that's what I'm saying, as a mental illness or as a disorder. However, we see like psychopaths do indeed have sadist tendencies. As Memory alluded to earlier, said this is a person who will kill you, or as they're torturing you, they're smiling or they're having their dinner there, and in perfect, and they're okay with that. So sadist is a characteristic of some of this personality type. And so it will be, for example, like psychopath or its twin sister, sociopath. Those two tend to have sadist tendencies.
Can you explain a little bit about the twin? Just a little bit. I didn't even know there was a twin.
Yes. So we have sociopath, and a lot of times people confuse the two. Yeah. So those two fall under what I said, antisocial personality disorder. So those two are like identifiers of someone with an antisocial personality disorder. So both of them have, so if it's antisocial, so of course they have antisocial behavior. Both of them would be caught in criminal offenses, only that the sociopath is more careless, not as calculated as a psychopath. A psychopath will commit a crime, and their crimes will be very well calculated, and they will not leave clues, and they're probably your next door neighbor who you go to church with. But a sociopath is almost like that hardcore criminal. We all know him, we all see what he does. So that's the difference, but they have very similar tendencies. Their ability to relate with people. So for psychopath, it's almost completely broken. It's broken down how they relate with people emotionally, but they can learn to mimic. They learn, for a psychopath, the emotions are not there, but they can learn. They can learn. Oh, so if someone cries, they get away with something. So for psychopath, what they express is really not what they're feeling, but what they have learned. But a sociopath, they also can be sadist, but they have a bit of remorse. They have a bit of conscience more than psychopath. And they're able to feel more empathy. So if you have two serial killers, one is a sociopath, one is a psychopath, the psychopath really has no remorse, no guilt. But a sociopath can have that tinge of remorse. Yeah. So they're very similar, but the biggest identifier of psychopath with either sociopath or the earlier one you asked, narcissism or all those, is that a psychopath has no conscience. That is the most predominant characteristic. They have no conscience. And it's not that they don't want to, they are incapable of. Their brain is different from our brain. They are incapable of experiencing such emotions. Back to you, Martin.
Nice. So memory, I don't know if you'd like to touch on that, but I have another interesting question for you. The psychopath and the twin. Now, these are people we do performance appraisal, performance management. Are these people who scheme their way through the performance appraisal, and they might not be performing, but they look to be performing very highly, or
Yeah,
they actually are.
Yeah, maybe I think the issue of the sadist and the sociopath, I think she explained very well.
Yes.
But also remember, the sociopath is your more or less intelligent person compared to the psychopath. The psychopath is a very intelligent person. The faculty in terms of mental ability, general mental ability, is so good. The sociopath could be your useless person, is basically someone who has no idea how things work, but they will still steal. So that's the difference. You rarely find a sociopath in the top echelon of organizations. That's very rare. They can be there if you're obviously using other means, but if you were to use capacity to be in that role, they rarely find. You find your sociopath in jail as well, together with the psychopath, because they have no conscience. They will kill. They still smile after killing someone. They will kill you for $1. Just $1, they will kill you for that. And still have no conscience. They are not capable of being guilty or empathy. They have no capacity for doing. Their mental capacity is nothing like that. So that's the challenge that is there. But I also want to highlight for people generally as an industrial psychologist that what drives performance in an organization is what is called general mental ability, because it explains roughly about 45 to 65% of the performance on the job. That's basically your capacity to think and find solutions to problems, nothing else. That's what comes first. The second one is the integrity, which gives you about 21%. Okay, those are the two major factors. Personality comes in as an enabler or a derailer. Okay, so if you are a very intelligent person, high integrity, but you've got a personality problem, you are likely to be derailed. So you don't reach your potential. But also remember, research shows there is a connection between integrity and this psychopath. Okay, a person who is highly psychopathic, very likely to have low integrity because they're very ruthless. What they want is self-preservation. They want to get whatever they want without caring about anyone. So that's where the challenge is. So unfortunately, when people then hire people into organizations, they don't use this validated and scientific methods. They use the interview. In actual fact, if you look at people who do psychometric tests, as an example, what they do is they do your shortlisting first. After shortlisting, they take you to an interview. After interview, they take you for psychometric test, which is the reverse. You must start with the most reliable and valid method first. Then you go to your less reliable, which is the interview should be the last one. Because you are likely to miss the cream, the good people, if you start with the interview.
Okay, so Faith, we have a very interesting question here from Liz. How do you deal with mood disorders with ladies at the workplace? Yeah.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, so first of all, I think it is very important to distance what we are talking about, psychopathy and mood disorders, as we go on. I know we switched gears so that that's clear. But so mood disorders are several. Depression is just one of them. We have bipolar. So it depends. So when, for example, bipolar has both the depression, and then it has something we call mania. So depression is when this person is feeling low and hopeless and not motivated. But then there are moments when they have the mania, which is they're driven, they're energetic, and they're doing well. So even when we're talking about how do you deal with that, we need to identify what we're talking about. Now, I need to also separate this from the usual, like if I'm having a bad day, yeah, that's not a mood disorder, that's something else. And that's what I'm saying, for the sake, even as we go through this, what we're going through today, it is not okay to diagnose people based on just what you can see. Yeah, I could be having a bad day, and it could be hormonal or not, so we don't want to call that a mood disorder. Mood disorder is very specific. As I said, there are very specific types of mood disorders. If it's hormonal, for sure, there's one that has recently been added onto the DSM, and it's called PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So then that's on another, that's not a bad day, that's not today I don't want to talk to someone because something happened to me. That's a serious condition that needs addressing. So if positively identified as mood disorders, then these people need help. They need professional help. But on the day-to-day, having a bad day, I think it's good to just, then we are saying it's human. Having a bad day, I don't think that's a woman or a man characteristic. I think we all do tend to have bad days. I think it's to ask yourself, if I was having a bad day, how would I want someone else to treat me? So that's what we're saying. Probably, empathy. Sometimes just a conversation, what is going on, just ask the person where they are. If they are open to talk about it, then that's fine. If they're not open to talk about it, then give them the space they deserve. But I think we need to separate those two, that a bad day is not a mood disorder. Yeah? And a bad day is just a bad day, and it's to go back and ask yourself, how would I want someone to treat me if I was having a bad day? And probably you can extend the same to the person who's struggling with having a bad day. But if it's a mood disorder, that person needs professional help.
Okay. Interesting question from Precious Odur. So I would like to direct this to you, Memory. Most public government organizations don't do psychometric evaluations, interviews when recruiting. How can we encourage psychometric tests that are important in recruiting for best fit? And I think let's look at it from the psychopath perspective. We have psychopaths in government. And then the second perspective is we are male and female at the workplace. Is it akin to one of the two? We have more male psychopaths at the workplace, more female psychopaths at the workplace, because we are getting to an area where we are finding even more women are taking on leadership positions. So what's your thinking or thought about that, Memory?
Thank you. I think in terms of psychometric testing in government-related organizations, you must understand why it's not happening. The reason why it's not happening is because if you go psychometric test, it's very difficult to bring your relatives in. It's very difficult to bring your colleagues in. So that's why that doesn't happen. So there's so much almost violent opposition to bringing psychometric testing into most government organizations, and except in developed countries, it's very prevalent. In most developed countries, you don't even go into government without going through psychometric tests. So that's the major reason. Corruption, where corruption is, you would not find psychometric tests because they will stop your relatives from coming in because they may not have the capacity to do the job. In organizations where there is no meritocracy, psychometric tests are not wanted at all because they want to bring in their colleagues and relatives. But also remember, if you look at research, politicians are likely to have more psychopaths there because there is more free expression of psychopathic tendencies in the political arena than in the corporate world. So you find more psychopaths also in the political field. Even in high places, there are psychopaths there. If you want to compare the workplace and the politics, yes, you do have more psychopaths in the political arena than in the workplace. That's a big challenge there. Then the issue of gender. The research is not conclusive here, and if you look at whether there is any gender that is more has got more psychopaths. The unfortunate part is, remember, there are also barriers that have been preventing women from getting into top positions. That's why probably we are not seeing many of them, because there is already a barrier, a gender barrier, which has nothing to do with whether someone is a psychopath or not. But in the passage of time, we should be able to get more research, scientific research showing the distribution of psychopaths in the general population and also in the workplace. Those statistics will be very crucial for planning and leadership development. One of the things that you also must take note for those that are really in charge of managing people in the workplace is that when leadership development sometimes fails because you are trying to develop people who have no capacity to be developed. And it's a waste of money. And plenty of money is being lost because you're trying to develop people who have no capacity to be developed. They are people who have no general or cognitive ability to be developed for the roles that you're targeting them. So it's a waste of money if you do that. So the best way is to, first of all, even if you want to reduce your training bill, is to get the right person in the first place. Screen at entry, If you are hiring an accountant, get an accountant for sure. It means you're going to spend less money on training them. When you're going to train them, you're going to train them on new technology, new things. You're not going to train them to bridge a performance deficiency in how they do their job. So a lot of money, even if you look at research, a lot of money is being wasted by people trying to correct people. Adults rarely change, and this is a fact. This is a scientific fact. Adults rarely change. You can increase awareness, especially if the source of the change is you are trying to target their personality. Their personality rarely changes. You can only make them aware. Their cognitive ability rarely changes. You can only make them aware. So the best way, if you're hiring anyone, is get the right person at the first instance.
Okay. Thank you, Memory. So, Faith, question from Catherine Wekesa. We have people who are bipolar and synchro. Yes, that difficult psychological word. At the same time, and they are high performers at the workplace. How do you manage them when at times they go off, and because it is a medical condition, you cannot tell everyone about them being bipolar, and that their bipolar side rub wrong way.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Martin, for this session. And I feel like we probably need another one just to address a lot of those mental disorders at the workplace. So it is true that we have this the same way we have all this, like the psychopaths at the workplace and they're performing well. We do have people with mood disorders. We have people with depression, with bipolar, with schizophrenia, and they're at the workplace. So what we are saying is that, first of all, they do deserve to be there. They do, if they're there by merit and if they're performing, then they do deserve to be there. Secondly, is to understand that if, for example, when they have a flare up or a relapse, and if it's a schizophrenic person is being probably aggressive, it's not that they're behaving badly. It's that's a symptom of the condition they have. So, for example, the same way, again, I go back to malaria, the same way someone has fever when they have malaria, that's the symptom. And so we don't say that's a bad thing, it's just a symptom of the disease. So it's also to understand that when it comes to mental illnesses, that the behavioral, the way people behave are the symptoms of what they're going through. So it's very different from someone just acting out and someone really, that's what they're going through. That's what their mind at that time, their emotions and their cognition, their thoughts is directing them to do. So what can we do about it? Number one, again, I say, if someone has these psychological illnesses or disorders, they need professional help. That is the biggest thing. So and for some of these illnesses like schizophrenia and bipolar, they do need medication. I know that's another thing. A lot of people are very against drugs when it comes to mental health. But I say it's the same way. If you're going to be diagnosed with, if it's cancer or something else, and you're given drugs, you take, it's the same way. Even with mental health, sometimes the brain is not okay. You're not okay, and you need to take drugs. So one of the things is for them to be encouraged to take their medication. A lot of people, when they're very faithful with their treatment, they can go for a very long time without experiencing relapses. So that's a fundamental. Number two is, and this is one of the things that I'm very passionate about lately, is can organizations have mental health policies? Yeah, a lot of times maybe people have a medical cover, but it does not cover. Becomes even a challenge for people, and it's not cheap. If this person has to have therapy every week, it can be very expensive in their pocket. So they'd rather go on without that. And again, as we say, it's with mental illnesses, it's not pain. So if they're not feeling pain, it's not as uncomfortable as physical. So I'd like to urge organizations have workplace mental health policies. That way, we even have a budget for it, because then if you don't have a policy in place, then you become reactive when issues are coming up. So that's another thing that organizations can do, implement mental health policies. That way, so resources are put in place, whether it's money or even the proper capacity. Who can this person go to? Yeah, whether it's inside at the workplace, probably is HR equipped to handle with basic counseling skills, or is there an in-house counselor? So those are some of the things that the people can do, workplaces can do and put in place to be able to support people with mental health illnesses, because we don't want to sideline them. We don't want to not give them jobs. We don't want to stigmatize them. And yet they have capacity they can lend. As the person, I think she's called Kate, Wekesa, she said, these people are performing. So then they shouldn't be not given an opportunity because of an illness that they are suffering from.
Okay. Memory, as we're about 2 more minutes before we end up this session. So to the audience, if you have any burning question, kindly share it on chat. I think we've tried to address as many questions that were coming up. So Memory, I remember these are the guys, very common in the workplace, maniacs, right? Maybe you could share, because I think that is a very common word at the workplace, maniacs, and on the roads. And I think they also at the workplace, and you could have psychopathic maniacs.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said earlier on in terms of what is the source personality of the problem. The source personality is the dark triad, which is your psychopath, narcissistic personality, Machiavellian personality. Those are the drivers. Then characteristics that you then see are emanating from either any one of those three, especially in the workplace. But again, like Faith said, is you are not, if you are not a psychologist, don't go and diagnose someone, say you are a psychopath, you are a maniac, and things like that. I would not encourage that, because it's stigmatization as well, and it's very dangerous in the field of mental health to be able to stigmatize someone. Get professional help. There are people who are skilled and trained to be able to diagnose whether someone has got a personality disorder or not. In the workplace, we say in occupational or industrial psychology, because I'm an occupational psychologist, we do assess that, but where we find that the issue is more clinical, we do refer to clinical psychologists, especially in our case here, because we do have those fields where we have different categories of psychology. While we are talking about these issues, it's for you to understand that we've got this big problem in the organization. Once you have got some kind of symptoms that you suspect someone may be a psychopath, may be highly narcissistic or Machiavellian, and it's impacting, because the question should be, is it affecting their performance on the job? If there's no impact on their performance, if there's no impact on other individuals that they're working on, it's not a problem, okay? And also remember, these same people that are coming to work, their fathers, uncles, and mothers coming from home. So all these things are emanating also from home. Like Faith said, most of the mental health problems that we find in the workplace, they also come from home, because we carry them. Mental issues, most of them emanate from the home environment. But imagine if you are stressed, you are depressed, you come into a home environment, you are being managed by a psychopath, it's going to make the situation even worse. I know people who have developed hypertension simply because of how they're managed. I know people who have developed many mental problems because of how they're managed by these managers. One of the challenges that sometimes, because these psychopaths, they're very cunning, they're very assertive, they're very charismatic. Sometimes they are fast-tracked into leadership roles without even having mastered the skills to be able to be in that particular role. That is a challenge that we see every day.
Okay, so there was a question here, maybe Faith, about 1 minute. Is there medication? A question by Mary Wanyeri. Is there medication for psychopaths? Maybe just 1 minute before we wind up.
Okay, I had mentioned that earlier, and I had said, so this is an area that has been under-researched. Yeah, there's not so much research on it. But at the moment, there is no drug that treats specifically psychopathy. However, there are some drugs that have been proposed that treat, some areas of it. So for example, I had alluded that sometimes these people are given antidepressants, just depending on how they are feeling at that point. Then also they can be treated using something we call oxytocin. Oxytocin is one of those feel-good hormones. So etc. But there's no one drug that says, okay, if you take this, then you will. As we said, psychopathy and memory said earlier, this is something for life. So what we just need to do is for these people to learn how to manage, and the people around them, knowing that is to know some of the things that they can do. Maybe with that, I had seen someone on the chat almost sounding like this is, so if this is not treatable, then, and they're at the workplaces, what can we do? There's some things we can do. So for example, number one, if you can avoid them, please do. If you can, because they're toxic, if you can change departments, change departments. If you can even change work, for your own emotional stability, then do that. You can also ensure that, so that you don't fall to be as part of their manipulation plan, whatever official communication you have with them, please have it documented. So communicate with them more on email or things that have a trail, because these are people who come back and say, no, we did not have this conversation, or this was the nature of the conversation. You can also be assertive. These people, like people they can manipulate, or they can bully over. So be assertive. Now, being assertive does not mean being aggressive. And that's another whole topic. But be assertive, be able to stand for what you believe, be able to say no when you need to. And then something else, avoid getting, like if it's in an argument, avoid going the emotional way. Use logic, use rationality. When you put in emotions, they will manipulate. They're master manipulators, remember that. And they will turn it around to that. So those are some things that you can do, so that people are not feeling helpless, or that there's nothing they can do. At least those are some few things that they can do at the workplace to help coexist with the psychopaths.
The memory people or judging people as psychopaths or not. Also, the other important thing, when I read the definition of a psychopath, also when you read, don't see yourself there. There's a very narrow, leave it to the medical people, there's a very narrow line, yeah? Just to be honest, I read the introduction of the psychopath, and when sometimes you find similar characteristics and you're saying, cannot be me. Don't label yourself, right? Cutting short as we leave, let me start with the ladies, with Faith. Last word.
All right, thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us, having this important conversation. So remember, I go back to the statistic, 1%, we're saying 1% of the general population are psychopaths. So in Kenya, if we're 50 million, we're saying we have 500,000 psychopaths around. And so these people are our family members, are the people we work with. God forbid, they might be us, So it's a reality. It's a reality, and so it's important to be able to identify some of these characters. And if these people need help, then let them have help. But also for yourself, to protect yourself from these people. Again, some of the things that we've talked about, see how you can protect yourself. And thirdly, please let's not go diagnosing ourselves or other people. Let's leave that to the professionals. Thank you, Martin.
Memory?
Thank you very much, Martin, for this discussion. Just to say that, like Faith said, in the general population, are looking at about 1%. But if you go into the workplace, the stats do change. There is a range of as little as 6% to as high as 20%. But latest research seems to show that it's around 18-20%. So the prevalence rate in the workplace. So just look at that and say, if you look at your leadership and say if it's 20%, which means 2 out of 10 are most likely to be psychopaths. There could be more. This is an average, remember. There could be more in the workplace. But my advice to organizations is that the best way to deal with psychopaths and other performance problems is to select at entry. You will never have all these problems You are not going to get rid of them 100%, but you're going to minimize the damage. You will have less. Instead of having the 20%, you may end up with the 2 or 3% or 1% as in the general population. You'll be okay if you've got a 1% prevalence rate of psychopaths within your organization across all levels. Then the second issue is mental health is very crucial in the workplace. Get the necessary help from trained people. Don't just take anyone who says they're trained. If it was here in Zimbabwe, anyone who deals with mental health is actually registered with the Ministry of Health as a trained specialist, and it's not an easy way to get registered. So that's what you want, to be able to deal with specialists. Don't take anyone, because you are also going to hire a psychopath to go and address other psychopaths in your own organization. And you can imagine the consequences. The damage long term is actually much bigger. Yeah, so the time and resources that you are going to invest to correct problems that could be solved by hiring the right people are huge. So hire the right people in the first instance. That would be my message. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Memory. We'd like to thank everyone who's joined us for today's session. Tomorrow's session will be on workplace politics, balancing your career and workplace politics. And we'll be having the pleasure of having Flo Moisika and Dr. Mary Mugo. I would like to request you to join us tomorrow using the same joining link. Memory, I think we need to invite you over for Ambuzi in Kenya very soon. I think. Yeah, anyone in audience with agreement with me, we need to invite Memory over for Ambuzi. This is the second time. I think we're loving to hear you speak and hear your knowledge and wisdom. Faith, it's a pleasure to have you joined us. And I think from what I'm seeing, from the comments I'm seeing, 1 hour was not enough to discuss this. I saw Wanjera, you said this is too short time, a period of 1 hour. Is there 2.0, season 2? I think we will develop at it. I think we will call it something where Memory shared the dark side of work. And we can discuss all the darkness we have at work. So we'd like to thank everyone who's attended, and we appreciate you. Any question that was not responded to or was not asked, you can send it to martin@iperformanceafrica.com. I'm just typing it there. And then as we finish, we'd like to ask the audience, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, that this was a very useful session and you loved it. 4, it was a pure waste of your time. Kindly rate us 1 to 5. We'll appreciate your feedback and your honesty. Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah. We appreciate everyone, and I appreciate you for the feedback. And be with us as we have already lined up, and welcome back. We forgot to welcome you back. So this is why we had taken a break to arrange things in advance. So the whole month of June is laid out, and we would like to welcome you to this learning session. This video session recording will be available within 1 hour. It will be in your email. You can check out your email. You can share with your friends. You can share with the people who are suffering from the psychopaths at their workplace, and they will learn and be able to benefit from this. We'd like to thank you, and guys, join us tomorrow again at the same time. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.